This is Every Widow Thing.
Hey everyone, we're back in the studio, and today's episode is inspired by a running joke between me and my bestie, Liz. We've known each other since our oldest were babies, and anytime we get together, still 21 years later, these words are said. You know what makes me mad? Silly things back then, and now you look back on it in perspective. Like, life was so much easier.
I know.
But we thought it was so hard.
We didn't know what life had in store for us, and it was about to get way harder. And so now the things that make me mad are a little bit different.
I remember something that made me mad early on, and it still bothers me because it's sort of part of the vernacular. I remember being in the grocery store, I don't know, maybe 6 months out or something, and I'm in the old Randalls, not the baby Randalls, but the old big Randalls
Yes.
that's now the HEB with the escalator.
Those are grocery stores
And I
for
ran
people
into
outside
another
of Texas.
mom, and I'm like, I put on the face. I was like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? And she was like falling apart because her husband was traveling.
And she's saying this to you.
To me. I literally walked away and I was like, yeah, my husband's out of town. He's never coming back.
Did you say that? Did you say that? I love it.
She would have.
What did you say?
So great.
Of course I didn't say
Oh
that.
man, that
I
would have
wish
been
you
great.
would've.
I said it under my breath as I wheeled down the next aisle. But one thing that does still bother me, because subsequently I've had people tell me that they're a work widow or even worse, a golf widow.
Oh, God.
And you're just like, oh my God, this needs to be taken out of
Very good
common
point.
discussion, especially with everything going on in the world. I was listening about that memorial in Maine and how one of the men that was shot has 4 kids. And I just thought of her this morning while I was, listening to that on NPR. And I was like, when you're telling me that your husband plays a lot of golf and so you're a golf widow,
Yeah.
that is not a great term, I think, for people to be throwing around casually. And, I'm not a very serious person. You guys know this about me, but there are certain things that I think we can be more sensitive
No,
about.
I think that's a great point.
The thing is, you have to know your audience. I was
Exactly.
talking to a friend of mine, my son's friend that died last February, and I'm still good friends with his mom. And when I'm talking with her, she asks about Gabe often, but I kind of tiptoe around what I'm telling her because I'm
Trying to be respectful of where she
Right.
is with her own grief.
So I think it's the same thing. If you're in the grocery store and your husband's out of town, you don't need to bring it up to your widow friend.
Right. Or
Yeah.
use the term widow in a flippant way.
I think just throwing widow on the end of everyday occurrences or
Yeah.
I realize people that they have a right to feel overwhelmed when their husbands are out of town, but reading the room is super important.
Yeah.
You know what makes me mad?
I've taught you how to say that really
People,
well.
I see it all on social media. People are videoing themselves crying
Oh yeah.
and then posting it. And I'm like, why? I don't understand. Cry, fine. You can tell us about the fact that you cried earlier, but why do I need to see a video? How is that even you're crying and you go, you know what? I should video this and put it out on social media.
I always feel
Let
like
everyone
it's
know.
maybe it's our generation, you cry in private, but it's this whole new vulnerability thing. And let me show you, how I can be vulnerable or my feelings, or I don't know, it's proof that I have emotions.
I just hate it.
Probably.
It makes me mad.
I think the
I'm just
cry,
put the camera down, girl, and get a Kleenex.
I think it's just part of this whole see
I
me
never thought about it, but it is kind of weird.
culture.
Well, you know what makes me mad?
What makes you mad?
What makes
Holly?
you mad, Holly?
When people keep score.
Like tit
Like
for
how
tat.
many good
tat.
things they've done for you, and they keep score of how many good things they've done.
Yeah. And well, they came to so-and-so's memorial. Aren't you going to
to their
their
memorial.
memorial? Or they sent you flowers. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I actually went on a girls' trip this past weekend and I was like, oh, wait, okay, well, they paid for drinks last night, so they shouldn't have to pay tonight.
I think that's always so hard when you're on vacation. It's really good to use those apps like the Splitter or Splitwise.
Yeah.
Is what we use on
that's
ours.
good for
And
girls' trips.
I was just on a girls' trip where we literally would get out of the Uber and whoever was in charge would say, put it in the Splitter right now.
Yeah.
So
In the
that you don't
Splitter.
forget. Because, you know,
Splitter.
you're drinking and you're...
Let's
That
all put
app
it in
is
the
cool.
Splitter. Okay.
It's helpful. There's
Who's in
Splitter
the
and then
Splitter
there's
right now?
Splitwise. I think there's two that are
I
similar.
think I've used Split.
Isn't it hard as a single, like the widow in the group, and then there's two incomes in the other people's group, or you go out with couples? It is awkward.
It's so
then.
awkward.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that in honor of Matthew Perry and
Aw.
Friends,
Oh,
which is so sad.
So sad.
But remember the Friends episode where
No.
they would like divvy up the bill and you know
The friends that were living in this fabulous New York apartment that there's
But
no
we're
way
all
they could
broke.
afford.
They were all
right.
broke,
But what makes me mad is also the opposite, where you go out to dinner with a group and someone orders like a $300 bottle of wine, and you're like, lady,
I don't know who you're hanging out with. That doesn't happen with
that doesn't happen in my crowd. But
We're always
Well,
like,
maybe
we'll take your
$300.
second,
Maybe
least
not
cheapest
$300.
white wine.
but
you don't
even,
invite me to those outings.
Well,
Whitney.
no, I don't want to
No,
go.
you do not. It is.
I
It is. It is.
Me either.
Honestly,
I'm not
to be
going to
quite
LA
honest.
with you.
Oh, you know what makes me mad? That
Here we go.
when you go to a nice restaurant and you sit at the bar and the drinks are like $17 and all the bar, and it's not like a fancy drink where they're muddling mint. It's just pouring a glass of wine, and then your bill comes and you've had 3 glasses of wine and it's $100 or something. And then I feel guilty not putting 20% down, but
and you're
I
sitting at the
refuse.
bar.
I used to serve, and when I had to run for an hour serving a table, I deserve that 20%. When you're standing behind the bar and you open the bottle right in front of me and you pour it right in front of me and you never break a sweat,
But
I've
I do
always
think
tipped- I've always
But I
tipped
do think
20%
that's all
no
going
matter
into
what.
a pool now. I think
Yeah.
everybody
is it?
splits the tip.
When I lived in Aspen, I worked at the Hotel Jerome, and I was
that is where this
and
happened.
I was only
Oh, man.
I was only a hostess to the hostess stamp. I realized, like what Kira said, we were all tipping each other out because not everybody's jobs
Okay,
could make
now
as
I
much
feel like
money.
a jerk.
But I just think we
It doesn't make sense in the moment when they're just
okay. Wait, I want to
opening
chime
and
in.
pouring.
Oh, right. Yes.
No, I kind of agree with
went over
Whitney.
there.
It's a $17 glass of wine. Why? I mean, why do you have to tip 20%
Well,
on it?
and the truth
on
is,
a glass of wine? Like
on a food bill, I mean, the rule is, although no one follows
don't
it,
tip
you're
on
not supposed
alcohol.
to tip on the alcohol.
that's right.
yeah. So I understand the food because it's like a work of art on the plate, but a glass of wine?
The Hotel Jerome was so beautiful.
It is
and super
fabulous.
fun. But we were literally there. This wasn't the moment where I had 3 glasses of wine. We were there for one drink, and she came to the table and she took the order. And then, by the way, it was not a 20% type of attention. I don't know. And we were right by the bar, so not even 20 minutes of work, but being there for 20 minutes. The bill for 6 people to have a drink was over $200, and then she gets a $40 tip. That's a lot.
It is a lot.
It is.
But
It's
it
so
makes-
expensive to live there,
Well,
too.
I
It's
know,
just-
but sometimes it just makes me mad. And when
well, I think it's hard because we're all single parents and we all have a budget that we live by, or we try to. I've busted mine the last couple of years, which is why now I'm having to kind of make up for
Mhm.
those bad
Yeah.
2 years, but
You
also
only had
just my my
2
poor.
years?
that's also part of the grief journey.
It totally
I think.
is.
Yeah.
My mentality will be like, you know what? Fuck it.
Or I deserve it. Look
I
what
deserve
I've
it.
been
I've been through a lot. The kids have been
That's
through
right.
a lot.
Mhm.
There is this. I got life insurance. Did you guys all get life insurance?
Yes.
I can't remember. Okay.
I got a
Small life
Mine was
insurance.
small too.
But so there's this money set aside. That's got to last you.
Mm-hmm.
your life.
Don't get me started on the budget, Whitney.
I'm not going to talk. You know what makes me mad?
Like my
when
plan
Whitney
has to
talks
make
about
it
the
tonight.
budget.
So this is a huge segue, but
Okay.
has anybody been watching The Golden Bachelor?
What makes me mad about The Golden Bachelor, I was reading an article and a couple of people were, because I think he seems like such a kind-hearted, high EQ male, which is hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite type of a man, is that someone with a high EQ, can read the room, read your feel, and just can share their feelings. Well, some of the people were commenting like, oh, he doesn't seem like he's over his wife, like he's crying on air about his wife, and yet he's dating these women. I'm like, hold the phone.
Yeah.
I really wish that I could say, hey, he will never get over it.
Right.
Just so you know, he is working through his feelings, and he seems to be in the perfect place to meet someone new.
Mm-hmm.
You're judging someone, A, that you don't really know, but 2, you're never going to get over it. I still cry about my husband
these people have
occasionally
never
12
lost
years
a
later.
This is so interesting.
Yes.
So my uncle, who is 82, his wife died maybe 5.5 years ago, and he just recently started dating another widow, a woman who's actually lost 2 husbands. But she basically said, I have been Googling information about widowers, and I don't think you're over your wife. You are living in the past. And I go, Jerry, you were with this woman for 50 something years. Anytime you talk about an experience or wisdom that you've learned over the years, she's a part of it. And he was really worried about it. He was like, am I living in the past? And I go, you're not living in the past. Just because you bring her up when you talk about your life. So that really made me mad.
There's a huge difference between living in the past and having the past be a part of who you are and how you operate.
I love the Means episode. I don't know how many of our listeners listen to it. I think quite a lot of people listen to that episode. I mean, they brought their old lives into
They
their
talk
new
went
about
to the
their
cemetery
spouses
together
all the
Yes.
time,
on their
their
first meeting.
Being
There.
someone who's a widow and a widower ought to be the most. I'm a little bit afraid of widowers because I know how deep that stuff runs.
Yeah, but so does trauma from divorce or
Right.
never being married. I mean, everybody's going to come with baggage. But I'm going to tell you one more
true.
thing that makes me mad, because this happened. It came out of nowhere over the weekend when I'm with these girls. These are my friends that I met when our kids were young. We were all like in carpool together. We were living similar lives with our children, and we just became this very tight-knit group. And we got together this weekend for a girls' trip. Let me just preface by saying I had some wine. There had
No,
been
you did.
day
Shocker.
drinking.
No,
There had
Very
been day
expensive
drinking.
$300 bottle
Yeah,
of wine
no.
in Aspen.
With the 20% tip.
So there was,
And
I was
altitude.
not as clear-headed, as I could have been. But we're sitting at dinner, and one of my friends starts talking about her dad dating, and her mom died, and how it frustrated her and how she felt like it was disrespectful. And I don't know where it came from, you guys, but I literally had this inner rage. And I think it's because we've been talking a lot
I wish
about,
I'd been there.
oh my gosh. I was pounding on the table. It was not good.
Did you
See
say
that.
something?
What'd you say?
I go, you know what? This is bullshit. Nobody has the right to judge someone after their spouse has died. Till death do you part. They've fulfilled their commitment. You have no right to decide when it is time or when it is okay to date. I laughed at Janice when she said, my husband said, I'd prefer that you don't bring a date
I
to the
loved that.
funeral, but I definitely want you to go out. And
She was
it
so
just
cute. She's
enraged me.
hilarious.
You can say, I'm
Say, I'm a little
worried
worried maybe you're
you need
not
to
in a
grieve a little
healthy
more.
place to be.
that it
This is
really,
wrong.
I have to say, I
y'all still
had to
friends?
apologize
You don't know what
later.
the hell you're going to do until
Are you
it
still
happens
friends?
to you. is all I'm gonna
Yes,
say.
we're still friends.
We
better
all
you-
run the gamut on the dating.
Oh my
and the
You
God.
can do it.
past,
Right.
relationships cropping up and,
I think we-
dating friends of the late spouse and all of it. Like
And
that's
some
all
other
gone on.
inappropriate. Yes, absolutely.
I think we all agree that in the perfect world, you probably should give yourself some time to grieve and feel all the emotions, what
And
you're
I think
really
you have
feeling.
to be careful of not hurting those people. I mean, I had some people that I dated early on that probably I wasn't
Right.
ready. And so
Right.
that wasn't necessarily
Yeah.
fair
Right.
to them.
But in our defense, you don't know until you know. I mean, we've never had a dead husband before. How do you I thought I was ready 3 years in. Clearly, I was not. And it
Yeah.
took another year and a half to realize, whoa, you are so not in the place to be able. But, sometimes you want an escape from grief. And so
Sure.
for people to judge that really makes me angry.
Yeah, I lost it a little bit to the point where later I was like, because it's not me. It's
Did they
not
cut you off?
typically me.
No, I'm glad you
No,
did.
they started trying to explain what they meant, but I honestly was having an out
You'd
of
already
body
lost
experience.
it by then.
You could not rationalize.
was no putting it-
Literally,
putting
when
it
I
back
could
in the
have
box.
had that on
I was
camera.
like pounding the table
I love
at one
it.
point, and
They're
Making
like,
a
Whitney's
scene.
going to get the bill.
they were kind of in shock too, because they were just like, "Where's this coming from?" And it's been 5 years,
You were the only widow in that room.
right? And I said that many times. Trust me. No, in hindsight, I would have handled it differently had I been a little bit more in my body. But because I had been drinking, your
The
rational
depressant
brain
too.
is
your filter
is
goes
not
away.
as
It's a depressant.
present. Yeah.
Well, it's
So I
interesting
just-
because Toby's dad died in his late 50s and his mom started dating when his mom started dating, which I don't know how long it was, but he was mad about it. And I think about that now. It's kind of weird,
That is
Um,
interesting.
It's funny to think about because he was probably 28. I
Right.
mean, we were married.
young.
He was
Right.
grown.
But you were young.
And I'm like, it's good for her, to be with somebody,
there's this what kept coming up that night was a disrespect. They just felt like it was disrespectful, and that's what I think got me really enraged.
I just don't think you understand if you haven't been through it.
Would you rather
Toby was trying to protect his mom. I think.
But
I
she
think-
was trying to protect her because someone might take advantage of her as a widow, maybe.
But that
Not as
doesn't
a-
elicit
her being-
anger. That
Right.
doesn't elicit anger.
Yeah.
Anger is coming from, I think you are disrespecting my dad, or you're disrespecting me. There's
But how is it
There's
disrespecting
something-
if, back to the Golden Bachelor, every single one of us in here, our spouses would want us to move on
absolutely
and find love again and have another chapter.
Yeah.
And this came up in the Golden Bachelor again, where some of them, the women, revealed that as their husband was ill and dying, they said, I want you to carry on, find
Right.
someone. I want
Right.
you to find love again. And one of the women said, I didn't want to hear it. And I shut it down. And I said, nope, I'm not. And then, she
now she's
opened
on
up.
the Golden
and
Bachelor.
now she's on the Golden Bachelor.
It's so hard when you had the one you wanted. So
It
hard.
is.
And it doesn't mean they're not great. It doesn't mean there aren't wonderful men out there, but it's hard when you think that was it. I
Yeah.
don't have to do this
And
again.
that skill set goes away. I have to say that I wasn't very good at flirting when I got back out there.
I'm clearly
I don't
still
know.
not.
I've seen you.
I've never been, nothing like
After a
this.
few
one ever-
drinks, I thought you got
I've
pretty
been like
good.
you at the bar.
But
I'm friendly.
I wasn't used, you're not, when you're committed, you're not used to eyeballing other guys or
right.
flipping
You're
your
not
hair or whatever
trying to
it
get the
is. And
attention.
I had to relearn some of the, it's a little rusty. You get a little rusty out there.
Are you winking at yourself in the bathroom mirror? What is this practicing?
Every morning. One of the things that I did struggle with that, I wouldn't say it made me mad, but for a while there, I had trouble being around people that just had never really gone through anything hard in terms of, they were complaining about their new kitchen tile being on back order or something like that.
Right. They don't have the perspective.
Or they would say things, I don't know if this ever happened to y'all, but they would say something like, I lost a grandparent, but they were old.
Yeah.
But they had never lost someone, in the prime of their life that was close to them.
That knowledge with my own life helps me when other people are dealing with something that I don't understand. Maybe it seems like they're overreacting, but you know what? I've never been in that situation. So I'm just going to let them feel
wouldn't
and
it be so
do the
much
way they
nicer
want.
if you say, you know what? I don't understand.
It was really more I feel like my mom deserves more grieving time. I feel like you're trying to replace her. Have that kind of a conversation instead of it's too soon. Like really, it's more about the other person. My sister told me that too. She was like, when I started to date, she goes, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready for that." And I go, "Well, good news. It's not you." And
Exactly. It's not about
you
them.
don't have to worry about it. But she was like, I don't want to see you with anybody else. I'm not ready for that. Okay, well, go deal with that
She bats us
in another room.
Well, yeah.
You know,
Families
and don't
quick
put
to
it on
jump
me.
on what they think you should do.
Sure. All we can do is show everybody grace. And even if it makes me mad, I'll try to get over it.
And that should be
And that should be the end of it.
I'll try to get over